what I would like to do is tell this story and tell the story of the intervention. And I think it's a pretty good story. It's the best story I've had in the 15 years I worked on. So, and it's a science story, and so I could just kick it off anytime you want to start recording.
Take it off. You're ready to go.
Okay.
Welcome to the Joe Cohen Show. Join me as I share my experience with biohacking and invite top health experts to explore the latest technology, supplements, research, and resources for optimizing your body and brain.
Let me start first with some comments about aging. What is aging? Aging is in my mind, and based on everything I know, is a program. It's a carefully articulated program that proceeds in phases. It starts when you're conceived. It starts when you're a single cell organism, and it ends with death. And it proceeds in phases. The first phase is designed to get you going as a human being. It's called a developmental phase. And anybody who questions whether this is a program, it's difficult for me to understand where they're coming from, because it's the most articulated, carefully contrived process known in the universe. It's more complicated than the formation of stars. It's the most complicated. The human body is the most complicated entity we know of. And we proceed in this process from going to being a single-celled organism with one type of cell to approximately a 36 trillion celled organism of 200 different cell types, and it proceeds in an extremely a different way for every individual, obviously a little different, but in an extremely complicated fashion where things have to be turned on and turned off in the process. The purpose of this process is to implement the grand plan of evolution, which for centuries we've been told has been to preserve the lifespan of a species rather than the lifespan of an individual, which is dispensable. So the individual is made of very temporary stuff in a very temporary arrangement, not really designed to last much longer than our lifespan. In this environment, I think we can dispose with the idea of living forever. There is no forever, first of all. Everything in the universe is temporary. Everything has a beginning. Everything has an ending. And so the idea of living forever, we may be able to live a long, long time, perhaps hundreds of years, perhaps even thousands of years. I'm not sure yet.
How many years do you think you're going to live? You're 93 right now?
Yeah, I think based on my current interventions and my current programs of what I'm doing, I will live until approximately 105, or certainly beyond 100. I plan to be active professionally and moving around flexibly, basically free of any age-related disease, at least until 100. I think other interventions are likely to come along.
So you think 7 years? You've got 7 years.
Yeah, I think I can easily do that, but it's not a question of how long you live. It's a question, how long can you live functional as a human being, cognitively capable? So I am working on other interventions that may be good for more years. Whether we can break the human age limit of 123 years, this is sort of the expired by or throw out by thing that you see on food labels. And it says this system is only good maximum of 123 years according to history. Whether we can break through that or not, I don't know. I think there may be a good chance.
Before we get into that a little bit, tell me, do you find that your cognition is getting worse at all over the past 15 years?
I would say that I have a long history of writing and a long history of research, a long history of contribution. I think I can say with pretty good confidence it's as good now as it was when I was 45. When I was 45, it was as good as it was when I was 20. It's as good as
Oh,
ever,
oh, interesting.
I think. Now, you know, older people are sometimes subject to delusions. I think if you look at my productivity, you look at my writing, you look at what I'm capable of doing, you would probably agree that it's pretty prolific right now. I'm writing as much as I've ever written.
Do
And
you check your testosterone levels?
no, not regularly. Once in a while I do.
Well, what's like, do you take testosterone replacement or
No, no,
why not?
because I don't think I need it. I think I take the precursor hormones, which are DHEA and pregnenolone, which differentiate according to the body needs into the subspecies of hormones that your body needs, rather than tell your body you particularly need this hormone or particularly that one. You take precursors. You don't go all the way back to taking the very root hormone, but pregnenolone and DHEA, I believe, are adequate precursor pronoun.
So, what kind of things are you checking to see how you're aging from an external way? Could be grip strength, it could be cognitive function tests. There
I do.
essentially there's like, you could look at how you're functioning as a human as a whole, or you could look at it objectively in terms of metrics,
I'm not
numbers.
doing metrics, and I'm very interested in your system of metrics. And I would like to subscribe to it and get into it. I have been so excited research and writing about what I want to talk about today that I have not gotten into it yet. But I don't do a lot of metrics. I wear an Oura ring, check HRV every day, check those kind of things, run regular medical tests. But I am not, I do, I'm a great believer in instrumentation as a way of knowing what's going on. And I have not done as much of it as I'd like to do.
Mhm. Interesting. Okay. And so what about let's talk a little bit about your framework in understanding whether you do an action or not. Because I have a certain framework that I use, right?
Sure.
Number one is I look at my lab tests. Number two is I look at my genetic predispositions. What am I at risk for? And then those have recommendations. And in Self Decode, we have a smart, intelligent recommendation system that kind of gives you the recommendations to minimize those risks. But essentially, just looking at it big picture, I look at my genetic risks and see, for example, if I have a high risk for, some issue that, right, you want to see where your weak points are in the body. And then I also look at what are my goals? What am I trying to accomplish? And I look at, yeah, and then I track in a whole bunch of in as many ways as possible to see how am I doing in a objective sense. And then I also look at when I decide if I want to include something, I'll often look at animal studies to see does this thing improve lifespan or not. I will look at Mendelian randomization studies to see if I have a genetic predisposition to higher levels of this thing, what does that do in the body? So I'll give you an example. Carnitine is something in your regimen that you include. I'm in the
L-carnitine.
process L-carnitine. I'm in the process of deciding if I should take it, and this is a good example of how it interacts it kind of tests the boundaries of my approach. So on the one hand, it improves a whole bunch of labs that I want to optimize. On the other hand, when I look at the Mendelian randomization studies, it shows that people who have a genetic predisposition to higher levels of L-carnitine, or just carnitine, and it includes acetylcarnitine, they have higher risk. They have a higher risk for cardiovascular disease. Now, you could check and self-decode what is your genetic predisposition for carnitine to see if you have lower or higher levels. So on the one hand, that it shows that Mendelian randomization study shows that causally, it seems to be based on this study that carnitine increases cardiovascular disease risk. And then there's also some peripheral things like it increases TMAO, which might increase certain things.
I, first of all, in no way want to suggest that what you're doing is wrong or inappropriate. It's what you're doing is this, I think, can be valuable. On the other hand, my focus has been different. It has been to, instead of immersing myself deeper and deeper and deeper into one particular subtopic, such as the L-carnitine topic, it's been to try and understand what is aging and what you can do about it. What does it consist of? What drives it? I now see the same questions you ask about, or similar questions, could be applied to multiple other supplements as well. And I'd rather devote it to understanding what aging is, generate effective interventions for myself so that I can live a long, long time, hopefully hundreds of years. Maybe not, certainly another dozen years. And I believe that there is a program of aging that basically means that 99.99% of the supplements I have believed in, I have been taking, are irrelevant. They may buy me a couple years and they may not. They may buy me a small incremental thing, but that there is a program that dominates aging that is fundamentally, and that these supplements are things that I've been doing for years and years. I do them now. I take about 125 pills a day. Their contributions are marginal. I'm trying to get to the basics rather than the details and details and
But some of them might
subdetails.
even be harming longevity. For example, maybe carnitine.
They may be harming longevity, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There's a program that dominates it. And that program is what determines how long we live. Why focus on the marginal benefits of a few years when you can get down to the basics of what's really happening? So that's been a difference of philosophy for me, that I have not dug deeply as you have into the specific supplements I take, although I've tried to do due diligence on them. And I have not dug into the detailed self-instrumentation that you have that I think can be very valuable, but I have not done so far.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not to make me wrong or you wrong. It's just a different way I've approached the problem.
Okay. So you mentioned that you don't really care about this specific vitamin or nutrient or supplement or whatever. You want to look at the big picture, solve the
Yes,
big hot
it's
potato here.
not that I don't care about it. It's that with with almost 2 million publications on PubMed and an ability to drill very, very deep into any subject area, I have to ration my intellectual resources and focus them on my objective. Now, like you, I'm very driven by objectives, by intentions, by what I want to create. And I'm very care, care, try to be careful with my time, not to get off into little rabbit holes and have little rabbit holes off of them. And then the bottom of those rabbit holes, there are other rabbit holes, which can lead me great deal of information, which may be of academic interest and may be of interest somehow, but it's not fundamental to my objectives.
Okay. So the thing is that once you find, or let's say you've already found the things that, you're finding things every so often, whatever, it still has to translate into something you're doing. And just, I
Yes.
mean, you're already exercising. We know that exercising 9 hours a day is not going to make you live another 20 years, right? There's a U curve for it, right? So it has to translate into something you can do that will actually make you live longer.
All right. The presentation I was going to make leads to that. And this definitely translates into something I do and have been doing, and that lead me now after the fact to understand, why am I not in a nursing home? Why am I not on support, life support of various types? What is there about me that has enabled me to keep going up to this point and still allows me to keep going? What has that been? And I can tell you how that directly relates to something I've been doing. Yes, it
Okay.
does happen. And so I'm not interested in pure academic understanding of aging. I'm interested in actionability. I'm a funny guy. If you'll indulge me, my mission is to further this particular species that we belong to, the Homo sapiens, and try and support the survivability of the species. I'm more committed to that than I am to nation or to locale or to religion or to any other ideology. And I feel that increasing longevity at this point is a key step I may be able to make some small contribution to.
Okay.
So,
So what
uh,
do you so tell me, what is the theory that you've
well,
found?
to understand the theory, you have to understand what aging is.
Okay.
And
They-
aging is a lifelong program that is extremely complicated and well articulated in its first stages. As I said, it has to make a human being. And this stage lasts till about age 21. Then it goes to another stage and it proceeds in various stages until the final stages. Then it's out to kill you. And it's out to kill you and at each stage you can say what happens. And at each stage you can say what causes that happening. And in each stage you can say what are the observed results. So maybe I could just talk about that for a minute. There is a developmental stage, and I'm going to throw my notes away because you, I love it that you're interested in probing what makes this guy go and what is behind this guy. I think it is very fundamental. So I'm throwing my notes away and I'm going to speak contemporaneously. The first stage is a developmental stage till you're around 21. And this is a stage where everything is focused on setting you up as a highly functional human being. In this stage, at multiple times during development, whole families of genes have to be turned on or turned off. And there is not a developmental gene, there's hundreds of them. There's not a DNA repaired gene, there's dozens of them. genes go in families. Individual genes don't do much, but they all work together. And in the process, what turns them on, what turns them off? Well, there's a mechanism called DNA methylation having to do with the spools around DNA, which DNA is wrapped. And it's methylation at a spool locus. So when you methylate a given spool, you turn off hundreds of genes. They stop working. They stop producing proteins. Their results no longer available. And when you turn them on, they make proteins that achieve a certain thing. Now, the DNA methylation is different at different stages in life. In the initial developmental stage, at a certain key locus of these histones, it's called H3K27, if you want technical. At that locus, many of the developmental repair and maintenance genes are located. When you turn those on, those genes are active. When you turn them off, they are inactive. It turns out that when you turn them off, you start to have real problems. I'll get to that in a few minutes. So in the first phase, the methylation is minimal at this point. It's kept down. Then around 21 in human beings, and this is well documented in literature, you can find things here and there in various places in the literature. You don't find this all in one place.
Okay.
The place where it's in one place is in my latest blog, by the way. There's a blog that lays out everything I'm going to say. And so during this first phase, this methylation is minimal. The developmental genes are active. The DNA repair genes are active. And if you know of any, and generally the organism grows up healthy, people in their 20s often think they're going to live forever because they don't have diseases of old age are almost unknown. The diseases that kill people in their old age are hardly known. And this is because those genes are all very active. At about 21, and there's a counterpart to this in every living organism. I mean, I don't care if you're looking at nematodes, fruit flies, bacteria, or plants, there's a counterpart to this. There is a shift of the program to where the methylation, the things that keep down the methylation are turned off and the methylation begins to increase. This means that this transition can be seen, as I said, in every species known to live. And it plays out differently, but it's an ancient mechanism that was readopted as our species developed, and we've inherited from other species. And at that point, adult aging starts to take place. There is gradual increase in methylation at this gene locus. That means that every year, your repair genes and your maintenance genes and your renewal genes are downregulated a little bit. Now, let me be clear. Renewal is not something that happens once in a while. Your blood turns over every few days. You have new blood cells. Your body cells are all renewed through the differentiation of stem cells. This is well documented. Aging is not random damage. It is a decrease in the efficiency of your renewal apparatuses. It's a decrease in DNA repair. It's a decrease in differentiation of stem cells. It's an across the board decrease in multiple factors. And this leads to a huge number of rabbit holes or details of aging. Like you could get into the mitochondrial theory of aging and devote your life to that. And it's valid stuff. It doesn't tell you what to do. You can get into cell membrane theories of aging. You could get into multiple theories of aging. They're all interesting. They're all valid. They don't address this fundamental cause. Around 45, as you go on, your DNA is more and more methylated. And typically what you observe at that point is the beginning of the emergence of diseases of old age. People don't look the same. They look 45. They're manifestly different. They are a little slower generally. They are beginning to show the hallmarks of aging. They're beginning to have arthritis, perhaps problems, sciatica, nervous system problems. You see the beginning diseases of old age. And this is because by the time you're 45, your maintenance and repair genes have all been downregulated to where there may be half or 2/3 of their original functionality. Now at 45, generally, people are still pretty active. They're still pretty good. These hallmarks of aging are not debilitating yet, although they could be requiring some medicines or some medical intervention.
So you're saying that these methylation on these histones H3K217, is that what it was?
H3K27 is the methyl is the
H3K27. Okay.
the
So
locus.
okay, so methylation on that locus is what's causing all of the problems,
It's
or a lot of
causing
them?
most there is methylation at other locuses which are turning on genes that are unwanted.
Okay, so
It
let's
main place
okay, so let's just break this down a little for the audience because they're not as deep into the aging science as you are, and so they want to understand. Okay, so you got this H3K
27.
27, and and this is being methylated, and genes are being turned off, and then certain genes are being turned on. How do we counteract this with diet, lifestyle, or supplements or drugs?
I think there's minor counteraction by some supplements. I don't think any of them really fundamentally address this. I believe that if we want to counteract this, we have to deal with the methylation, slow it down. There are a couple natural demethylators
E.g.,
that
CG and curcumin.
no, those are phytosubstances.
Those are DNMT inhibitors, which
Yeah, they don't address the fundamental issue. The fundamental issue is the gradual upgrading of the methylation, and there is a demethylase called JMJD3, which is a natural demethylase, and another one called UTX. Part of my research is how can we activate those and slow down the demethylation at this stage. I'm not sure yet. I'm working on it. I'm hopeful that that's the next stage of intervention, but I'm not sure yet. But the point is, let me continue on. I talked about age 45. Advance to 68. By 68, the methylation has had major impact. A typical person will be subject to one or two or three chronic diseases, and they'll be seeing the doctor more and more. They will be involved in medical interventions. They'll be taking drugs to deal with particular diseases. The demethylation at this point has progressed to the point where something else is happening, which is that because
Is
They
it
repair
demethylation or methylation?
the methylation. Methylation.
Okay.
By the time you're 68, your repaired genes have been downregulated, and your maintenance genes have been downregulated enough that your organ systems are beginning to be affected and are screaming for help. What they do is they go, they develop a natural reflex called inflammation. They become inflamed. You begin getting the diseases of old age, the inflammatory diseases, arthritis, COPD, dementias, Alzheimer's disease, you name it. Every disease of old age is an inflammatory disease, a super inflammatory disease. And the
Right.
inflammation is because our body systems are not getting the repair and maintenance that they need. They're not getting it. It's as if you had a city and every year that was functioning perfectly well, and every year you hired 2% of the maintenance staff in that city. And pretty soon your garbage piles up. And pretty soon you have diseases rampant. That's the kind of condition we have. Your maintenance and repair that your body needs to keep going is being gradually turned off on you. And vitamins and supplements and everything we've been doing can help, maybe peripherally, not centrally.
Is there anything that you know of that can help centrally?
Yes, that's
What?
what I'm getting.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Spoiler alert.
Let me finish the story. And, I have to just,
I'm too
um,
curious.
yeah, basically what happens, you have this rampant inflammation because your organs are screaming, help, I'm not getting what I need. Help me. They're going into a hyperinflammatory state.
Right.
And that state feeds back because the hyperinflammation leads to greater methylation. And you have in the final stage
Which
advancing.
helps, you're saying. So it's like there's a less methylation. What
Well,
or
what happens is that
well there's
the
the
no,
oh the wait
the
more
it
methylation
increases
is bad, and then the inflammation causes even more methylation, you're saying?
absolutely very
So
well done.
it's a negative cycle. Okay.
It's a deleterious positive feedback cycle that really is not dominant until the final stages when you're in your 80s. Now, at 86, first of all, only about a third of the people make it that long. At 86, almost all of your repair mechanisms are turned off by methylation. Your body is in a hyperinflammatory state. All of your organs are screaming. You've got typically multiple deleterious disease conditions that the doctors try like hell to help you with. They try and fix things,
Hmm.
but the natural body things that would fix things, which is demethylation, is not working.
Hmm.
You and this hyperinflammation shows up in multiple ways, and pretty soon your body systems no longer can function and you die. And you can die from multiple proximate causes. There's 1,000 ways you can be killed, but basically you're being killed by this basic cycle of life that happens because evolution is out to kill you. It There is a maximum age limit on every species. Every species has a maximum age that they live. And this program of methylation and killing you off is in every species we know.
Okay.
And I don't care if you're talking about guinea fruit flies or nematodes or what.
Do you take
So
these DNA methylation tests to see your biological age?
the DNA methylation test was, and the DNA methylation studies of Horvath and his colleagues are part of the basis of knowledge on which what I'm speaking is based.
Okay.
Yes, Horvath sees that as you go through life, your methylation pattern changes at every age. It doesn't stay the same, and there is a typical methylation pattern of old age and young age, and that's due to the phenomenon that I described. Now, what do you do? How do you break it?
Yeah,
How do you? Well,
exactly.
being a program, it's hackable.
How do you hack it? Curcumin?
Good news. How do you hack it? I only know one hack, which works in the final stages. That is the feedback cycle between hyperinflammation and DNA methylation. How do you break that feedback loop? I do it with, I've been doing it for years and years with my anti-inflammatory supplement regimen. I do it now with my 4-herb synergy, the liposomal version of it. I break the inflammation part of the cycle, which means that that last positive vicious feedback cycle that kicks in your
So the
80s.
supplements do, but the problem is, why doesn't curcumin, which is
uh,
an anti-inflammatory supplement, part of your 4-herb synergy, why doesn't it not show longevity effects in animals?
well, first of all, inflammation means is triggered by the activation of a key substance called nuclear factor kappa B. Maybe you know about this, NFKB, and all inflammation is triggered by that. Some of the mechanisms of inflammation that activate NFKB are turned off by curcumin, not all of them. The 4 supplements in my dietary supplement address different aspects of activation of inflammation. They can turn off most aspects of inflammation. And what you want to do is turn off chronic inflammation. That is inflammation that locks into place. You don't want to turn off inflammation. Inflammation is a natural substance, natural phenomena. You need it for wound repair. You need it for any infection you have. It kicks in normally, and it normally resolves. There's a final stage of it. Chronic
So this,
inflammation is
so
addressed by
is
these.
this only gonna help if you already have inflammation as presented by CRP, HSCRP?
I think it primarily, this phase of breaking the cycle can be hacked only if you're in the phase where your body already is screaming because of inflammation. It
Mm-hmm.
can't be hacked. Now,
Can't be hacked before.
I think this particular hack only addresses the final deathium phase, the one that kills you at the end of the process. The hyperinflammation, which feedbacks to hypermethylation. Now, there's other research going on that's highly supportive of this. For example, the David Ketcher experiments with small animals and the convoys, if you're familiar with it. The convoys have a huge body of literature and a big following right now. And they concluded a few years back that there are aging factors in the aging blood that caused multiple diseases and problems. And that if you purified the blood and removed those factors, you could enhance your longevity. And they showed how this worked with small animals. And they didn't know at first what the aging factors were. They just said, we know that if you bleed these small animals and replace their blood with plain plasma or with a saline solution, they'll live longer. They didn't know why. They have recently come to the conclusion that what those aging factors are, fasten your seatbelt here because it's ridiculously obvious and stupid to me, are inflammatory cytokines, IL-22, IL-6, IL-8. These are the highly inflammatory cytokines. So there's a whole body of longevity people out there who are following their approach, who are using a different approach, not a dietary supplement, but what is called apheresis, which is that you have a machine that purifies your blood. It recycles your blood through it. It's called an apheresis machine, and it separates the cells in the plasma, throws out the old plasma, which has the bad stuff in it, and allows new plasma to come in. And this appears to work. It increases it enhances the life of small animals.
You're saying that, so let's see, the 4 anti-inflammatory herbs that you're taking, are there any studies in each of these herbs for lifespan? Because I don't think there are, in terms of
No,
there's
not for
curcumin,
lifespan.
boswellia, ginger, and ashwagandha.
Not for lifespan. There is a body of literature going back 3,000 years in the Chinese tradition and in the Indian tradition for both of those,
Mhm.
and their very effectiveness for dealing with aches and pains and dealing with.
Yeah, but
Uh,
that doesn't, but lifespan, why wouldn't it increase the lifespan of animals?
I'm not saying they don't. I'm just saying I'm not aware of literature
Well,
that's
so there's a
specifically.
study on curcumin that shows that it doesn't,
No,
actually.
no, there are studies that show that suggest that it does. But these 99.99% of the literature of those herbs, first of all, there's a very extensive body of literature showing their efficaciousness against rheumatic diseases.
That's
Again,
true, that's true. But
uh,
I don't, in
but
terms of let's say curcumin, let's see, curcumin, so there was that study that showed it didn't, lifespan, PubMed. Yeah, I mean,
no, studies are needed in that. It's, it's that if they exist, I'm not aware of them. I am aware of very extensive studies that document the biological activities of these herbs and how they work. But also, there is another factor that needs to be taken into account, which was in my personal history, which is that each of these herbs, if consumed orally,
mhm,
has to pass through the bloodstream and has to get by a central system known as the liver. Now, the liver's job is to look for impurities. And if there are things that the liver thinks may be dangerous to the organism, the liver purifies them out. If it purifies, if too much of that substance exists, the liver gets swollen and fails, and you die. That's what
right.
happens with alcoholism, for example, people die from liver failure. Now, curcumin has a very low degree, only 4% of absorbability into the bloodstream. And very little curcumin gets from taking it orally into where it's needed to do its job to neutralize the chronic inflammation. The point is that if you increase the dose of curcumin to where it's going to make a real difference, your liver will become toxic. You can't do it. You can't just up the dose to where it's going to be efficacious. Curcumin is notorious in its limitation of bioavailability. If
Yeah,
you
but let's
go,
see which curcumin. Okay,
if
so the curcumin they used was curcumin C3 complex.
yeah, what you need to do is what I have done is deliver the substance liposomally or via a nano delivery technique that bypasses the liver, that goes through the lymphatic
Okay,
system.
fair enough. I'll give you that. I'm not a big fan of this curcumin per se. Yeah,
How are
I
we
don't
doing?
think I
Yeah,
don't think that's I think I take different ones that are liposomal.
yeah. Well, I think those can be highly effective, and you may be getting a longevity benefit out of that. Now, I thought I knew everything about inflammation and everything about these herbs and everything about the epigenetics of aging. In February, when I invented four herb synergy, I never had a longevity benefit in mind. It was purely to deal with my personal aches and pains connected with arthritis.
Hmm.
I have always seen my taking this supplement or my advertising about it or my talking about it or my podcasts on it. Never have I made a longevity claim until now.
Hmm.
My recent blog and this podcast is the first time I've ever gone public to saying, hey, the stuff I've been doing for a completely different reason, a comfort reason and an anti aches and pains of arthritis reason, has a longevity benefit. I didn't see that until I understood what this cycle of aging was.
You want to hear about the one health hack that is sure to change your life? Okay, here it is. Subscribing to this podcast. 67% of listeners aren't subscribed to the show, so please don't forget to show your support by hitting the subscribe button now. You'll not only be supporting the show, but also investing in yourself and your health journey, all while helping to keep us ad-free. What do you think that you take has the biggest longevity benefits?
Probably this supplement. And
What else besides this one? And what are the specific ingredients?
well, in this supplement or what? In the supplement, the
Um,
specific ingredients are four
no,
power.
not this one, and just in general, which one?
Okay. I think I would give a very great importance to the inflammatory properties of the fish oil supplements. That the fish oil supplements contain things known as resolvins and about four different kinds of substances which are key for the resolution or the termination of the inflammatory cycle.
Mhm.
I've written blogs on this in the past, that the inflammatory cycle can, instead of ending in resolution of the inflammation process, can result in the formation of certain entities known as inflammasomes. I don't know if you've ever heard of those.
Yeah.
And they persist. They persist and continue your inflammation. The Maricins, resolvins, and a couple of other substances in the fish oils, I think are very important. If the czar told me I had to cut down my supplements to just a few. I would fight like hell to keep
Fish
those,
oil.
the fish oil ones. Yeah, I
Which
would
other
all
ones would you fight to keep?
the green tea
In
ones.
the green
The
tea
green,
ones.
yes, they have.
Do you take a liposomal green tea one or just the regular
No, no.
EGCG?
I take a liposomal DHA right now, and a
Okay.
liposomal. I supplement
You
my.
take liposomal DHA?
Yes, I do. I take
What
a
does that
sup.
help with it? It helps cross the brain barrier better, is that why?
Yes, it. I'm a great believer in the bioavailability theory. I think unless you have the bioavailability, your supplement, which says it doesn't, your test, which says this doesn't make a difference in longevity, is not testing an adequate dose of the substance. That the bio you multiply your bioavailability by a factor of perhaps 6 with the liposomal delivery.
So let's
Very
talk about your regimen a little more. You what else would you take besides fish oil, bioavailable liposomal curcumin?
well. I'm taking some of the a whole number of supplements, sort of historically because I've always taken them, and because if things are working for me, I want to let the good times roll. I don't want to inadvertently withdraw something that I need. So, for example, I take a number of supplements designed to promote NRF2. You know what an NRF2 is? It's
Yeah.
a it's a whole body of natural body responses which involve the upgrading of about 50 very good genes, healthy genes. So I'm taking things like milk thistle extract, uh, copa, monero.
What about okay, so what else besides these 4 herbs, what else do you find is, like, part of your favorite that you really like?
In supplements?
Yeah,
Well, I I I would list some lifestyle things above supplements. Certainly in
okay.
my grade, for example, regular sleep is important. There's an intervention I do that involves brain rhythms, brain waves. Involves. Are you familiar with those at all? So I see getting plenty of sleep, intervening with those regular brain waves and other things in my age bracket as being very important right now. In terms of supplements, I sort of love them all.
You think liposomal curcumin is more effective than rapamycin in increasing lifespan?
I can't answer that. I don't know.
Okay.
I have never seen anything. I know that rapamycin is a 12 to a maximum 15% increase in lifespan possible because that's fairly documented in the literature. But I don't know what curcumin by itself in liposomal form can do.
67% of listeners aren't subscribed to the show, so please don't forget to show your support by hitting the subscribe button now. You'll not only be supporting the show, but also investing in yourself and your health journey, all while helping to keep us ad free.